Good evening. I hereby call this November the 14th meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. Items on the consent agenda are unanimously approved unless a council member or a member of the committee wishes to be pulled for consideration. If not, it is approved with a unanimous sweep, and then we move to the general agenda. Before we get there, I just want to take a moment and recognize, all of our men and women of service who are here today. We'll start with our attorney's office, Attorney Carmen, represented. We have our city manager, Lee Garrity. We have our police chief, Chief Barry Roundtree. Chief Mayo is normally here, but I see right in front of me. How could I miss you? The tallest man in the land. And our director of emergency management, he is usually here, Mr. Sadler. Thank you as well, and thanks to everyone for attending. Members of the committee, do we have any items that should be pulled for consideration on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion. It's been motioned and properly seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. That is unanimous. Thank you. Now we'll move to the general agenda. Item G1, please.
Item G1, recognition of the Winston-Salem Firefighter Combat Challenge Team.
Speaking of Chief Mayo, Chief Mayo will be giving us the presentation. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening.
Good evening.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, other members of the council and committee. I appreciate you recognizing us tonight. You remember we were here in September to recognize our combat challenge teams for their performance in Louisville. That was a regional qualifying event that qualified them to go to the World Championships that were held last month in Montgomery, Alabama. And I had the pleasure of accompanying them down for that trip and event. And I'd like to recognize those folks again tonight. Before I do, I'd like to recognize Assistant Chief of Training and Safety and Special Operations, Tad Byram is here with us. Also, Battalion Chief Sharice Moore is in the back. She's joining us tonight as well. I'm going to ask the team members if they will come up and join me in the front. I have some brought back to Winston-Salem with them. I'm going to allow them to hold that.
All right.
Hear that jingling going on out here.
That's a good sound. It's a wonderful sound. Sounds like winners.
So I'll introduce these guys to you again. Bill Petrantonio is here in the back. He is, you'll remember, he's retired from Everett, Massachusetts, but he runs with our team. And Jesse Walker is standing to Bill's right. Jesse's retired from Greensboro. But both of these guys run with our team, and when they introduce them as being from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And Bill is actually a resident of the city.
Right.
Also, we have with us what we know as the old guys. Captain Ricky Brown here is in the front, Captain John Pennington, and then standing behind him, Captain Dwayne Cheek. And Mr. Chairman, let me tell you, these guys, these older guys have been doing this 22 years. They are legends in the sport. That is no stretch. Everybody there knows them. As a matter of fact, the Combat Challenge World Championship is broadcast live on ESPN3. And on 2 occasions, they interrupted the broadcast to ask this man right here, who's the man?
I'm the man.
Oh, yeah. All right. Okay. Yes.
And then these young guys standing here sort of in the middle, Don Reeves and Ben Emmert and Pat Davison and Chaz Browning is in the back, Captain Browning. And we are really proud of their performance. They represented the city of Winston-Salem extremely well. I'd like to show this video to you. This is the young guys running by themselves for practice, and I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit, but I'm just going to play this video. It's about 1 minute and 20 seconds. Hear the alert. They're up the tower. They're carrying 42-pound high-rise mountain soldiers. They can skip steps going up, and they must touch every step coming down. We get to the top. This is a relay event, so now they hand it off to the top. They were pulling a 42-pound hose to the top. That top of that rail that you see right there is 44 feet 7 inches off the ground. up and down. They mess up every step they come over to a Kaiser sled. They're driving a 160-pound steel icing 5 feet pallet. Off the sled, they're running another 40-foot elevator course down to an inch and 3/4 stars pavement. That would be our standard. And we're picking up with a top see the public, you put it before it loads it. So the more people down. They go through 2 saloon doors, they hit a target with a water gun, they pick up 175 pounds. So you can see it simulates actual events that would be carried out on the fairground. And again, that's a relay event. They have individuals, they have tandems, and then they have relays. Those guys, those young guys, they cut, in Montgomery, they cut 11 seconds off of their qualifying time from Louisville. Now, that is only the 7th time they've ever been on a legal combat challenge course. These old guys are good because they've been on that course so much. And if you noticed that tower, that's the key. So as any good fire chief does, as these guys were participating and in between and breaks, I was snooping around for an advantage. And so there are some teams there that are young and they are extremely competitive. Their folks are not any bigger, faster, stronger, or smarter than our folks. I determined what the key ingredient was, and it's that tower. The nearest regulation tower to us is in Myrtle Beach. And Mr. Chairman, I'm going to work with the manager, and as he deems appropriate based on funding, I'm going to recommend that we invest in one of those towers for Winston-Salem. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a great deal of money. To buy the material and have it erected is about $50,000. So these old guys for 22 years have invested their time and mostly their money in practicing and representing so well the city of Winston-Salem. We owe it to these young guys that they don't have to run that long to become competitive. We need to have the equipment here. We can duplicate the Kaiser sled. We can duplicate the hose drag. We can duplicate any part of that course here in Winston-Salem. We cannot duplicate that tower. They run in a parking deck, but that tower, and I'm not going to belabor the point tonight, that tower is built particularly for this. It is specified, it is engineered, and you cannot duplicate that any other way. We need a tower in Winston-Salem. And when that time comes, I would appreciate your support for that and your committees.
Thank you, Chief.
So these old guys, so the young guys, 7th time on the course, they qualified for the final 32. I think remarkable for the time that they've had on a regulation course. The old guys, Jesse and Bill here, they set a new world record for the over 65 tandem. So they came home as world champions in the over 65 tandem. The old guys, they battled injury. We had a bad elbow. We had a bad quadricep. We had a bad back. What else did y'all have? You know, old age is tough. But they battled through, and so we run the same team in the over 40 that we run in the over 50. And I'll remind you before, as I have before, so these guys who are in their 50s and 60s, they are running against guys on the other teams who are as young as 39 and a half. So they battled through. They ran a team before against both teams that beat them were running a team of 5. So the scheduling was not in these guys' favor, but they battled through, and they still represented us well. So they came back, in addition to the over 65 tandem world championship, they brought back a 2nd place finish in the world in the over 50 relay and 3rd place in the over 40 relay. And again, I can't tell you what great ambassadors these guys are for the city of Winston-Salem, and I appreciate your time tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chief. And I'm sure some of the members of the council and committee want to say a couple of words, but I will just say to the men on the combat team, we appreciate your service, not only to the department, but to the community. I always like to say, as a former football player, I've seen better skill and agility and footwork on that video than I've seen with people who I actually played with and against. And you really look good. You truly bring honor to our city, and we're really appreciative of your efforts. Anyone else have any comments?
I'd like to say that it made me tired looking at you going up those steps. But, yeah, I certainly hope that we can accommodate doing something for the team. Y'all are great.
You know, I'm going to say something. I just hope that the ones who are the young guys, that they'll be able to do what you can do, and that they will have had the type of health habit that is the inside that makes the difference. And I bet right now, if you take some of these, what they call themselves young guys, you say, run up those steps, you'll be up there before some of them get up there. I don't know about you, though.
I have a stride advantage.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Chief, we appreciate you and your comments. If there's nothing further, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right.
What are they changing?
That's their one.
Yeah.
They're medals.
Huh?
They're medals.
Oh,
World.
okay.
Yeah.
And members of the committee, we'll just give, out of respect, we'll let the firefighters take a moment to exit the room before we move to item G2.
Amen.
Double as bodyguards.
Bye-bye.
And as a point of information, committee members, there is no one signed up to speak on the public safety comment sheet. We'll move to item G2.
Item G2, resolution of support by the City Council for the recently formed Forsyth County Incident Management Team as an incident support mutual aid resource for local and statewide emergency response.
Giving us the information on this item is our Emergency Management Director, Mr. Mel Sadler. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chairman,
Good evening.
members of the committee. We are bringing a resolution before you for eventual approval by the City Council. The resolution is a resolution of support for a concept that we're developing right now in respect to mutual aid between our local jurisdictions as well as mutual aid across the state of North Carolina. We've had some experiences with it now. We've had some individuals who want to volunteer to work with it, and we think it might be appropriate for the elected officials, number one, to be aware of this effort that's being made, and number two, to be in a position of support should that become necessary. And to give you the actual briefing, I'd like to introduce our three emergency management coordinators, whom you may not be familiar with. Whom you may not be familiar. We have Leah Cordell, Robert Reese, and Michelle Brock, whom you've seen before.
We have.
And they're going to give you the briefing.
Good evening, council members and committee members.
Good evening.
As introduced by Director Saddle, I'm Robert Reese, one of the emergency management coordinators and also the operations officer for our office. I'm going to present three items. The first is the thing you see right now, which is our logo. Also, why an incident management team is needed. And lastly, what an incident management team actually is. So first, our logo here, it is a Scrabble, and it's a very generic Scrabble. If you look, you see EMS, fire, emergency management, and law enforcement represented there. We did not do individual identities because there's way too many members to try to mix in there. And also, it's so outreaching that you would forget someone in the process. And also, I'd like to take note of the one for law enforcement. It is actually the sheriff's badge and a PD badge merged together that way, because there are actually separate symbols, and that way both of those organizations are covered as well. So we'll move on to the next slide here. And here's the big question is, what is an incident management team? The Forsyth County Incident Management Team is a mutual aid resource for local and statewide emergency responses. And it provides instant support. And we can to kind of describe what we actually do, is we established by what the need is. An incident management team operates under normal incident management system concepts, under the National Incident Management System concepts, which provides for first responder safety as well as safety to our community as well. This is a national recognized standard, so we're all talking in the same terms and referring to resources in the same manner. Also, it's more effective and more efficient to use our resources because when things are organized, we can make sure that those that are needing help get the correct help, but not just something that we think will work. The Forsyth County Incident Management Team can provide support to events such as expanding incidents, such as a severe weather event, whether it be ice storm, tornado, or also our hazardous materials type incidents. If we have a train that derails or some type of fuel spill on the interstate that may get bigger really quick, you can also expand to cover that. And also, we can use it for pre-planned events. It's not always disasters that we think about. Items such as our Dixie Classic Fair at the fairgrounds, that's roughly 9 to 10 days of planning that goes in there, so we can go ahead and plan ahead. Also, the Festival of Lights at Tanglewood. You've got a high volume of traffic and visitors to the county as well, so we can incorporate it for many different things. And lastly, the thing I want to talk about is the Forsyth County Incident Management Team has members from other counties. And it's kind of, some may question, why do we have other members from the counties for? First and foremost, it gives us training with our neighboring communities. And that way we can all benefit each other. We can learn better ways to do things and see what works. And then secondly, when they do call for our assistance, there is a rapport and a relationship that we've already developed by working with them, and they can also help mainstream us into some things we need to know in their county and community as well.
Thank you, Robert. Good evening.
Good evening.
So what I wanted to talk to you about is some things in which the incident management team has been engaged in so far. We started training these folks in August of 2015, so we've had a year or so to start organizing and coordinating the different folks that are engaged. You'll see in that left-hand picture several folks from different agencies. You see several fire chiefs there. You also see the Stokes County Emergency Management Director and someone from EMS that is providing logistics for this type of training. On the right side, you see what Mel had mentioned earlier about how we have already been engaged in certain activities. One of those happened to be Hurricane Matthew. If you'll see in the picture, you'll see Chief Byram. He deployed with me to Edgecombe County to work in Tarborough's Emergency Operations Center as an EOC overhead team. Edgecombe County was under the line of fire from the Tar River, a lot of water there. In fact, evacuated an entire township, the township of Princeville. So they needed a lot of assistance in their Emergency Operations Center. And so 4 folks from several incident management teams, one person from Vance County, one person from Alamance County, and then Tad and myself provided support from Winston-Salem, Forsyth County. So we have several expectations of the folks that would be participating in the incident management team. So those members that compose the team would be expected to participate in any meetings that we have, in training that we have, any exercises, and if they're asked to deploy, we're going to ask that they make a big effort or their best effort to deploy when they are needed within the county or across the state. We also expect the agencies that are respective representatives of those folks to support those personnel and support their activities. So administratively, or if there is equipment that is needed so that it can deploy and be used with us. Here's Leah.
As you can tell by this picture, the incident management team is made up of representatives from various organizations from different areas of expertise. Forsyth County's incident management team members are the best of the best from local fire departments, law enforcement agencies, emergency services, emergency management, local universities, volunteer animal rescue organizations, regional state medical assistance teams, public works, and other representatives from various local and surrounding governments. It's not just Forsyth County. We do incorporate other local governments. The Winston-Salem Forsyth County Office of Emergency Management coordinates the trainings, the exercises, and the deployment of the local IMT. Michelle Brock's the coordinator of the incident management team and organizes the members and activities for the team. Yep.
That was a cook's tour of the IMT, looks like. We'd be happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions at this time? Councilmember Light.
How do you practice something like this? I mean, you had a real life practice with Matthew, but...
Well, we do a normal training, and we do our normal exercises. Exercises can be as little as as small as a tabletop exercise, but I think you participated in it a couple of weeks. Or we could go out and have a functional exercise, and that we move people and move equipment. So that's how we rehearse. We rehearse the same way that we play. So with that thought in mind, we are going to train continuously on a regular basis, and there'll be a minimum level that we'll have to, that each participant will have to maintain. I think I have an amendment coming here.
I just wanted to mention to you that we have participated in exercises statewide. We participated in a central branch office of emergency management exercise, which was a search and rescue exercise in Granville County. And we took several members up there, and we filled in positions on the incident management team for that incident. So we practiced with other folks. We practiced those positions in other counties. We also went up to Surrey County and practiced with their incident management team. So we kind of melded the two together and had an exercise there. So we do plan to do more exercising here in Forsyth County, particularly with WebEOC, which we just purchased, and it is a fantastic tool and helped us out a lot in Edgecombe County. We used it to put together an incident action plan for the entire county.
Are there any other questions?
Any other questions?
One thing I want to point out, by the way, Winston-Salem State is one of the stakeholders that's participating with us. So it's not just emergency organizations. There are other private and nonprofit organizations within the municipality here that will be participating with us, including the colleges.
Yeah, President Burke.
When you mentioned Winston-Salem State, Mr. Page, do you remember when we had some type of emergency management and the Winston-Salem State initiated something that with the emergency management? The new, is he the assistant chief? Huh?
They remember the training that we did at PSC.
Yeah, and he brought something new that they had not been doing. This new, I don't know his.
They were using GIS or
Yeah.
something to sort of map out
That might have been the
facilities.
yeah, that might have been the mapping program that we're
Yeah,
doing
I
currently.
bet.
Right, we're doing that with all the local colleges, Winston-Salem State, Wake Forest, Salem College, and Forsyth Tech, and that we're mapping all of those facilities and putting those maps and into a format that can be accessed by law enforcement, particularly for emergency situations.
The reason I bring that up is because it was Winston-Salem State's Public Safety Department that brought it here, initiated it.
I think so, yes,
Yes,
sir.
it is. Mhm.
Anything further, Mr. Sadler?
I believe that covers it, sir.
Members of the committee, it appears that this is an action item, asking us to support the resolution for the recently formed incident management team as an incident support mutual aid resource for local and statewide emergency response. Seeing that and hearing the presentation, I would entertain a motion at this time.
Second.
Motion and properly seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Sadler. Thank you, members of the committee. Item G3, please.
Item G3, resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Mobile Dock PLC for the provision of medical evaluation services for certain candidates for fire department employment.
Members of the committee, Finance Committee, which a lot of you were there for that committee, approved this item on the consent agenda. If there's nothing further that needs to be added, we can move forward with a motion to approve this item or deny based on the pleasure of the committee. So what is the pleasure at this time?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you. Item G4, please.
Item G4, consideration of items regarding the 2015 Human Exploitation Rescue Operative Internet Crimes Against Children Act grant.
Again, this is a similar situation. This item is also on finance. We would move to hear the pleasure of the committee at this time.
Second.
Motion and properly second. All in favor?
May I say something?
Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
And also, Mr. Chairman, I did ask the city manager to do this on Channel 13 so that we can see more about this crime against children on internet. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think there was a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you. Item G5.
Item G5, Winston-Salem Police Department's Violent Crime Initiatives Update.
Giving us this update on gun violence and violent crime initiatives is our police chief, Chief Barry Roundtree. You have the floor, Chief Roundtree.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman
Good evening.
Taylor, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, and members of the Public Safety Committee. This information is being provided. There is concern, and I'm concerned about the level of violence in the city, in particular gun violence and just violent crimes in general. So I'm bringing this to you tonight as information to you and also information to the public. You do have a comprehensive memo that's in your packet, as well as a copy of this PowerPoint. So what I'll be doing here tonight is just briefly hitting some of the high points that's mentioned in the PowerPoint. Also, I will mention before I get started that, again, we have seen a significant increase in our homicides up to this point compared to 2015. I would like to mention also that our overall crime from the third quarter is down about 5%. So that's overall crime. I do realize that the homicide numbers draw attention, and they should be a concern to you as well as to me and the rest of the city. But I do want to mention again that the overall crime in the city is down. Violent crime is categorized by the FBI Uniform Crime Reporting as murder, forcible rape, robbery, and aggravated assault. So these are the main crime categories that I will be discussing this evening. This is just information that I saw nationally, how violent crime, gun violence in particular, costs all of us, here in Winston-Salem and all across the nation, about $229 billion per year, with the things that we deal with the destruction, the breaking up of families, just those kind of things. So this is where this number is coming from. Nationally, there has been about 10% increase in homicides in particular from 2014 to 2015 across the nation. Some of the things that I believe, and just talking with different chiefs and attending professional training across the country, that are influencing gun violence is the ease of access to weapons, the style of weapons that are available to the general public, high-capacity magazines, and really there's a acceptance to violence in our society. The willing to settle disputes by weapons, the depreciation of human life, and repeat offenders and convicted felons possession of weapons. There's also a social side that's affecting the violence that we see here in the city. Poverty and economic resources, of course, that's part of it. Education, drug activity, mental illness, and the lack of community resources. Again, some of the things that we are seeing just based on investigating the cases, individuals believe they're entitled to others' property, inadequate criminal justice system and mental health systems. All these are some of the social factors that play into some of the reasons that we're seeing gun violence and just violence in general. This is just a map, not to point out any particular area, but I was asked to provide where we're seeing a lot of the Part 1 violent crimes in our city. The blue areas just shows where some of the crimes are occurring, but the concentration of the Part 1 violent crimes are in this particular area that's shown here on the map.
Can you tell us?
This particular area is the area that's what we have is B222, which is the area around that's centrally located around the eastern part of the city. But of course, we have seen violent acts across the city.
Sometimes I would get this exactly what those areas, please.
Chief, if you give me one moment, you finished your comments, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm coming to you in a second, Councilman Montgomery. Chief Roundtree.
I've already had a question.
Mr. Montgomery,
Oh, just a Councilman Burke's point.
you got the floor.
The eastern part of the city is a broad stroke, so that's in terms of just identifying a particular area, that's all just.
Okay. This particular area, I wish I could blow it up, but I can't. But these are the areas that are central around the Liberty Street, Cleveland Avenue, the core eastern part of the city. Some of the strategies that we have initiated to address gun violence, of course, we have our focused deterrence strategy. Focused deterrence is where we look at the small percentage of individuals that are causing a large majority of the problems in the city. We use data analysis, current trends and historical trends to deploy our resources and personnel. We have used some targeted digital advertisement where we to help us address issues, help us pick up incidents that may occur that are being posted on social media. We have officers assigned to federal task forces. Of course, we have our violent crimes task force that we work with in conjunction with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and we collaborate with the District Attorney's Office. What we started doing a while back is our CPP, which is the Community Priority Patrol. That's overtime that we use to deploy additional officers in areas where we allow the data to tell us where it may be a hot spot or where we anticipate where there may be some issues. Those officers are put in these areas to conduct high visibility patrols. They conduct foot patrol and they conduct citizen contacts. We've also used patrol augmentation to ensure that we have additional staffing to handle any calls for service or any citizen needs to ensure that we have police officers available. Of course, as you are aware, we applied for and we received a COPS hiring grant, and that grant is specifically designed to address homicides and violent crimes here in the city. That grant was to hire 10 police officers. Also, we've studied the national trends and successful reduction strategies. We use Crime Stoppers, of course. We've used different things to help get guns off the street. We remove weapons anytime there's a domestic incident. A couple of our homicides this year have been domestic related. And of course, we use public education, whether it's at a community meeting, public service announcements, and also doing our media and press briefings. These are just a few things that we use to gain intelligence, and of course we have an enhanced forensic science area where we use ballistic testing. We have a major crime response team, and also enhanced fingerprint testing. Some of the technology that could be used to address violent crimes and gun violence in particular is, of course, smart weapons. That's where the weapons will. You can only discharge that weapon if it's based on the fingerprint. So there are several different smart weapons available, but the particular one that I'm speaking of is if you own a gun, I wouldn't be able to fire that gun because it's tied to my fingerprint that's pressed on the trigger. A lot of weapons are stolen and then they're used to commit crimes. But that technology is out there. There's been some resistance by some of the gun manufacturers, but that is one of the things that we would like to see, and one of the things that that are being pushed across the country by different chiefs associations. Of course, enhanced background checks, gunfire detection technology. Of course, a lot of times this is not really a proactive step, but it will give you an indication as far as where firearms may be discharged, and also the additional deployment of cameras in different areas. Just to give you an idea of the homicides here in the city and the gun violence, of course, 10 homicides were committed with a handgun, and we had 7 with a long gun or rifle. And then you see the other breakdown from the others.
Chief, can you tell us what an edged weapon is?
An edged weapon could be like a knife, or mainly a knife. A blunt instrument could be like a bat, you know, if somebody's beat with a bat or some other kind of object. At the time when I ran this, we did have 21 homicides. This was as of October the 22nd. Of course, now, unfortunately, we've had another incident that took place on last week, so we're actually up to 22 at this point. 16 of the 21 homicides have been cleared. 2 of the homicides were self-defense, and of course, 5 our detectives are still following up on different leads to clear those cases. Just to give you an idea of some of the gun activity that we've done here in the city, this is just a breakdown of the guns that have been stolen, recovered, seized, and found, comparing 2015 to October the 1st of 2016. What community actions can be done to reduce gun violence? Of course, I ask you as a local official, local, state, and federal officials collaborating to propose legislation to strengthen gun laws. Of course, you can't have gun violence if you don't have weapons. I'm not advocating completely removing weapons, but of course, that's one thing that can be done to help reduce it. Public education and forums, multi-agency partnerships, and what we have to do as a community is to do what we can do to reduce the retaliatory type shootings. We have seen several of those here in the city. When one group, something happens, then another group retaliates, and then you have another person that's either shot, injured, or possibly killed. There's a need for the community, if they see something, to say something. And also, as law enforcement, we have a role too to better communicate with the community, to work better with them to help reduce gun violence and just violent crimes in general. I know that was brief. It was, you do have a complete memo. This was brief just to give you a snapshot of what's actually listed in the memo. And I'll entertain any questions that you may have, or if you request additional maps about some of the locations where, specific locations where we're seeing the incidents occur, I can provide that information to you as well.
Chief, in your final comments, you mentioned the concept of see something, say something.
Yes.
Well, we do have mechanisms in place, such as Crime Stoppers and maybe some other programs to help to provide some assistance to residents who see something and say something. Can you tell us about Crime Stoppers before we open the floor to the committee?
We do have the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Crime Stoppers is actually ran by members of the Winston-Salem Police Department, but it is for the Winston-Salem Forsyth County. Individuals can call in if they have information about drugs, suspect information, to help solve a crime. You do not have to leave your name. You do not have to identify yourself. The way the program works is that they give you a specific identifying number that you use, so you don't have to say this is Barry Roundtree calling in. But if your information is used to recover drugs, if it's used to locate a fugitive or solve a crime in some kind of, in some manner, you can be compensated by the Crime Stoppers Board.
Any questions for Chief Roundtree about the presentation? Councilmember Light?
No, I say it's every time I hear these statistics and the availability of guns and particularly machine gun kind of guns, that's just horrifying, you know.
Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
I was going to say that I enjoyed listening to the presentation. Now, we're not perfect as a police department, but if we go back and we look at the kinds of initiatives we have been a city a little more forward than some other cities. I've been disappointed with, we have a lobbyist, and when we talk about our city, I don't think they're doing the best job in letting somebody know how our city could be recognized. For instance, when President Obama mentioned things that cities needed when they were having all those problems, well, the things that he mentioned, we were already doing it. And we sent them a list, but if we'd have had a good lobbyist, they would have gotten our information to someone that maybe they could have asked our chief of police to be the chairman of that national committee. Because some of these people were not doing the kind of community policing things that we started a long time ago, and organizing neighborhood groups to communicate and to be able to talk, and what we put in our schools for children to talk to the police. That's the things that we've done. I do believe I heard Chief, he wasn't speaking to me, but didn't I hear you say you went to Washington? Haven't you been to Washington?
Yes. Well, I didn't go to the, Assistant Chief Thompson went to the 21st Century Task Force to hear the conversation there, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe you went to share the good news about how wonderful we are.
She did.
Well, maybe I can ask her a question. When you went, how did they recognize us being who we are?
Well, we have had the opportunity to share some of the ideas and initiatives that we're doing right here in Winston-Salem on a national stage. In particular, we did a conference in San Diego just last month. And during that conference, there was a workshop on bridging the gap between police and communities. During that conference, I had the opportunity to speak to our Trust Talks initiative that we've done in Winston-Salem. And the response to that initiative was so overwhelming to the Winston-Salem Police Department has now become a part of a national conversation that is held monthly with the Department of Justice and other law enforcement and community agencies across the country. And so we are now a part of that conversation. And in addition to that, we've been invited back to Washington at the end of this month to go talk to the Department of Justice again about some more of our initiatives. So they are well received, and it is in venues like that that we realize we are so far ahead of many, many other law enforcement agencies. I have a phone conference set up on Wednesday with a deputy police chief in Canada who wants to talk about our initiative as well. Next week, we'll be talking to a department out of California. And then tomorrow, again, Chief Roundtree, myself, and Chief Weaver will also be a part of the Department of Justice conversation with other law enforcement agencies, as well as community, faith-based community leaders across the country, again, as part of that Department of Justice conversation.
Well, that sounds good, but it's like a best-kept secret. And I think, Mr. City Manager, and Chairman, committee member, when we have things that we're doing, and when you look at other cities, when they're being recognized at a national level, in fact, years ago, we brought the DEA here, was the first city to bring them into our city from this region to show them what we were doing and how we had the community forum and people were involved. And then it's just so many things that we do, but you'll see other cities being recognized. So I guess what will be for us to do try to find out when you cut on national television what you're just talking about, that we see what's happening in Winston-Salem with the game. We've been a little further ahead than most cities beside. So we need to share it. Is that understood?
Mm-hmm.
toot our own horn.
Yes, you need to do something.
And I guess, Mr. City Manager, you can share that information with our Marketing and Communications
Absolutely.
Department as well. Make sure we make some headway there. Chief, I've heard you mention, well, we all say this, one homicide is one homicide too many. And I heard you say something along the lines of, if we can predict where the next homicide was going to occur, we can make a lot of money. It's just difficult to do that. But we do the best we can in this city. What I've known from looking at the numbers and the stats is that usually, in the overwhelming majority, there's a relationship between the victim and the person who committed the homicide. Because you talk a little bit about that. I like to use the term wild, wild west. I always want our citizens to know that in this city, people are just running around and doing whatever they want to do in fear and chaos. There's a method to it, whether we agree or disagree. If you just talk a little bit about that.
Yes, out of the 22 homicides that we've had up to this point in 2016, with the exception of one, there was some type of relationship between the suspect and the victim, whether it was domestic violence or whether they were associated through family or some other type means they knew each other. So, but it's not people just going out shooting each other.
Right.
They're connected to each other in some form or fashion, with the exception of that one that I mentioned.
Well, it gives me a little bit of comfort to know that, in this city, if you don't know someone, you're safe. But it does bother me a little bit. It's not the people you don't know, it's the people you know. And we should conduct ourselves accordingly. Is there anything else for Chief Roundtree on this particular item? Thank you for the presentation, Chief Roundtree.
Thank you.
Members of the Police Department. That was the last item on tonight's agenda. Is there any further business for the good of the order? Seeing none, we'll hereby consider this meeting to be adjourned. Thank you.